Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Endseeker, Mount Carcass, out April 16th on Metal Blade Records. This album has 9 tracks, 36 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are a death metal band from Germany. Now, this album proves one thing above all others: less is more. Now, I'll get to it as we progress through this review. As far as structure and track listing are concerned, I love this record. 9 tracks, perfect amount, very tight, very cohesive from that perspective. It doesn't lose itself in the length and the amount of tracks that it holds. And then when you look at the individual song structures, they change ever so slightly from track to track. This makes the album feel slightly bumpy. You're getting a different perception, you get a different look, you get a different feel with every single song. It doesn't have these peaks and valleys, it doesn't have these abrupt cuts in between songs. It's very smooth. It changes from track to track, but the changes happen in a very natural way. So it makes the overall fluidity of the album stay intact. You press play, you listen to it, and the next thing you know, the album is over. It just moves very easily, and it carries you from song to song, almost like I said, in a seamless fashion. You don't feel like you have to work through this record. You don't feel like you have to work through each and every single song on this album. You just have to really sit back, enjoy it, and let the record do all the work. Once you get into the soundscape, I think it's inevitable to start to feel the connection between the soundscape and the structure. I don't think you can walk away from one without affecting the other. The two are intertwined. How they build these songs and how the overall album sounds, and then the impact that it has on the individual tracks, all of these worlds are weaved in as one. You cannot break one from the other, otherwise you don't have a record anymore. The sound is powerful on this album. Obviously, it's a death metal album. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be brutal at times. It's going to have a lot of power, a lot of presence. It also has a lot of volume. It really feels like a big sounding record. And it also has the ability to give you slight different looks from song to song as far as a combination of elements, but still stay very connected and intact as far as the overall sensation that you get. What I mean by this is that this is almost a death metal album that goes through the complete spectrum of death metal approaches to sound and how you can make songs. It really gives you a little bit of the brutal side, it gives you a little bit more of the classic death metal side, and then it goes more into the melodic death metal approach. I feel like all of these genres of death metal are present within this album. Sometimes a little bit more of one, sometimes a little bit less of the other. But this is not a traditional death metal sounding album that has one single style, one single look, one single feel from the first track all the way to the last track. I felt like they wanted to create an album that if you just close your eyes and you pick a song and you press play, you'll know exactly which song you're listening to. It's not muddied. It doesn't disappear within the forest of the record. This is an album that allows you to definitely see the trees and not just the whole image in front of you, and that's an important element, one that's not easy to achieve, specifically when you talk about death metal, but they did a wonderful job really creating an album that offers diversity but still stays very connected as far as the overall sound approach is concerned. Within that sound, there are 2 elements that drive this record for one reason or another, and those are the drums and the guitars. The drums are more consistent. They're consistent in terms of the sound, they're consistent in terms of the approach. You could almost feel ahead of time what you're going to get from them on any given track. But they're there to create the foundation, create a very wide road, a very wide foundation for this album. I think the drums play this incredible role of allowing the album to be as dynamic, as fluid as it is. I don't think you can do that from the guitar side or from the bass side or from how you connect these elements without the drums being as consistent as they are and creating this incredible sound experience that the record then just pushes forward by using other elements and dictating the direction of which the tracks go. Once you get into the guitars, they're the ones pushing a little bit more into the eclectic side. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is an eclectic album because it's not, but it does give you a little bit of a glimpse of all of those different styles of death metal. And most of that is coming from how the guitars push the songs and where direction they want the tracks to go. Are they including more heaviness into the sound? Are they pushing more melody into the sound? How do the choruses are coming together? Do the guitars feel a little bit more crunchy? Do they have more volume? All of these things are happening, but how the sound comes across stays very consistent. So the direction and perhaps execution of the guitar playing on this album varies within the songs and from song to song, but the way they come across has this signature sound that stays true across every single track. Really interesting approach, one that works once again really well for an album like this. On top of it all, you have the vocals. The vocals are super consistent. Perhaps with the drums, they're the two most consistent elements on this record. I enjoy the vocals, I like the tone, I like the delivery, I like the consistency, I like the heaviness, and as the drums, they allow the album to be a little bit better grounded. They create these end books, if you will. They just allow the album to stay within certain parameters and not break off of it and not feel like it doesn't have a connection or not feel like it has a red line through it. So the vocals really help with the consistency of sound, with the consistency of approach, and overall with the consistency of the record. Having said that, there were some times where they used some volume, some depth to the way the vocals come across, specifically on some of the choruses. I really like that. I would like to see a little bit more of that, perhaps even some backing vocals in a way that feels a little bit more pronounced, that feels a little bit more in the forefront. Still using the lead singer, but using him with multiple vocal layers in order to give a little bit more substance to some of the tracks, because otherwise it starts to feel just one size fits all, and for a record that's this compact, that's this tight, it could become a problem. It doesn't become a problem on this record, but it could become a problem. So I would like to see them change that ever so slightly, because like I said, the times that they did it worked amazing within the tracks. It made the tracks feel so more vibrant. It made the songs feel like they had a lot more life in them. Overall, I really enjoy this record. And now let me say this. This is the reason why I feel like more, sometimes less is more. When you have an album with 9 tracks, 36 minutes, you have to pack a lot in a short period of time. And I felt like they did that for this record. If this album was 2 more songs, perhaps 10 more minutes, it would be a little bit overdone. It would have become a little bit redundant, it would become a little bit repetitive. This is an album that is as good as it is because of the amount of tracks that it has and because of the short duration of time that it holds. These 2 elements are super important to make this album feel as exciting as it does, to make this album feel that it has the playability that it has. This is a record that you press play, you navigate through it with the greatest of eases. There's not like really impactful songs in terms of being super hooky and super catchy, so that's not what's going to bring you back to the album. What's going to bring you back to the album is the sense that you've barely heard the album, because it flies by. And when you listen to a record and you have the sensation that, did I really listen to this album because the time just flew? You want to listen to it again. So that's the key. This is really the winning formula for an album like this that has this sort of amount in terms of 36 minutes in length and has this sort of amount of tracks and having only 9 songs. I love it. I love the fact that they kept it tight, they kept it close, they kept it very compact, and they didn't go above and beyond and make the album feel like it overstayed its welcome. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Merciless Tide. Great guitar sounding track, big volume on this track, and that's true throughout the record, but I really felt it more on this song. It has a nice tempo to it. It's a song that dips as you progress through it. It doesn't have the same consistency of progression. It changes as you move along. It has ebbs and flows, it has peaks and valleys, but you need that in order to make the song feel more dynamic, in order to make the song feel more interesting, in order to really grab your attention from the get-go all the way to the end. The chorus is slightly more melodic than what you're going to get out of the verses. The short solo, the solo is really short, but it's compact in the way it fits into the song. But I would like it to be a little bit longer. That's something that I wanted to see on a consistent basis throughout this record, was slightly longer solos. They were nice, they had feel, they had impact, they had melody, they really understood the dynamic of the song and they really impacted the song in a positive way, but slightly longer would have been better. This song is a perfect example of that. The solo just felt slightly short. Not that it hurts the song, but it could have made the song better by being a little bit longer. Overall, I really enjoy the song, has a lot of heaviness, has a lot of intent, great direction. Next, Bloodline. This is, outside of the singles, my favorite track on the record. It's a more crunchy guitar sounding track, and perhaps that's why I gravitated towards it. It just feels a little bit thicker. It feels like it has a little bit more volume, it has a little bit more meat on the bones, and it moves along, and it just destroys you with its heaviness, with this crunchiness as you progress. It's also a track that has great bass sound to it. I love the bass, I love how it sounds on this song, and I love how much of a role they gave it to it, because it really pops into the forefront a lot as you progress, as you move along within the track itself. Once again, the chorus is a little bit more melodic, but with that melody comes a little bit of darkness, so it changes the whole atmosphere of the track. This is a track that feels a little bit darker overall, but it does that because of how the chorus comes across and what the melody does to it really increase the sensation that that darkness is present there. The vocals help as well. The vocals really push that even further because they have some darkness in them as well, specifically, like I said, within the chorus. Overall, there's great depth of sound. There's great depth within the vocals, more so in the chorus than in the verses, but it's there. It's a song that just feels like it's expanding, like it's growing, like it's moving. I love how it moves. I love how dynamic it is. I love how powerful it is, how heavy it sounds, and it has a very traditional approach as far as construction goes from beginning all the way to the end. Last but not least, Cult, a really interesting track because at times it felt like a punk track. It's not, but the way it starts and some of the moments that it has within it, within its own soundscape, really comes across almost as a punk song, even though it has all of the DNA of a more traditional sounding death metal track. I love how it comes together as far as the energy that it puts into the forefront. This is a song that lives more off of the energy that it creates than anything else, and that energy really drives the heaviness and melody that the track has within itself. It has bursts. It's a song that comes at you with bursts. It has different steps, if you will. It's not linear. There's no peaks and no valleys. It just has different momentums within the track itself. The way it's constructed, it's very volatile. It never lets you feel extremely comfortable where you are because you never know what's coming next. So it just has a lot of speed bumps along the way, but that makes the song more interesting, and it never really loses that energy, that intensity that it carries from the beginning all the way to the end. I like the feedback of the guitars at the end of the song. I think that's the perfect closing for a track that's this bumpy. The way it starts, it also has a little bit of that punk sound at the beginning, so closing off with that feedback is going back to their roots, giving you that punk flavor at both ends of the track. In the middle, there's some volatility there, but it becomes more of a traditional, like I said, death metal song. But I love how this song is constructed. I love how compact it is and what it has to offer to the listener. This is it. This is Endseeker with Mount Carcass out April 16th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, on the album. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.